The Brewtallyspeaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Starving Artist Brewing. Starving Artist Brewing may be a small speck on Michigan's beer map, but they say big things come in small packages. A brewery who really puts their money where their mouth is, supporting underground artists far and wide. Making delicious beers with the simple belief that you should judge beer, not people. Brewtallyspeaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. With over 500,000 officially licensed items in their online store, you're guaranteed to find something you need. Use our code BRUTALLY and get 10% off your total purchase order. Now on to the show.
People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard. And you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give
up. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Brewtallyspeaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is Sam, vocalist, guitarist of the Bobby Lees. This was a really interesting chat, and first and foremost, I want to kind of put shine on Monica, the publicist of the band, for reaching out, and not only reaching out to have Sam come on the show, but to reach out and be vulnerable herself when reaching out to me about how this band means something to her, that she believes so much in what the Bobby Lees are doing, so much in Sam's vocals, so much in the album Bellevue, that it's one of those that I just don't see it often. Hardly ever, honestly. And that's not discrediting any other publicist that's in the game. It's just, it stands out when it happens. It's that word of mouth thing. It's that drive. It's that passion that I feel like we've kind of lost as people, as lost as fans, lost as just being lost. And when I saw that, honestly, it could have been anything. But, the header of the email was just like, it was attention grabbing. The body of the email was attention grabbing. And I just knew that I needed to have Sam on the show. Like, there were no ifs, ands, or buts. It was going to happen. And it was one of those where, you may listen to the Bobby Lees and kind of think that maybe that's not something that I would be listening to. And, I'll fully admit that it's probably not something I'd listen to often. I think that there's kind of a time and a place for certain styles of music for me personally. And a lot of times, as I get older, I don't really want to listen to kind of loud, aggressive music. I spend a lot of time in a bar, in a loud environment, so I'm actually tending to find myself going toward very quiet, ambient type stuff where it's nice to kind of sink into it and just let it kind of be. But the lyrics of the new Bobby Lees record really spoke to me. There was a lot of just jarring emotions in this new record. And even if you go and watch some of the visuals they've put to some of these songs, they're equally as jarring in different ways. And it's really interesting. It really demands your attention, and I think really speaks to a lot of bigger things that we're just kind of not talking a lot about, mental health being a big one. Obviously, I have been a big proponent in talking about mental health, going to therapy myself, what it's done for me. And I love talking to other people who have kind of come out the other side of themselves after going through something that maybe is traumatic or a very trying time, because I want there to be accounts from people either you look up to, the guests that are on the show, or even myself, because I'm more quote unquote like same as you. Like, I'm not a famous person. I'm not somebody in a famous band that you'll probably never meet. I very much am someone that you would see and very much goes through a lot of the same things that everyone goes through. But I think it narrows the gap of understanding that things happen to people and that we can overcome some of the most horrific things that have happened to us. You just kind of have to be willing to put in the work and get there. And it takes time. But all of that is said, what I don't want to take more of is your time. So let's get into my chat with Sam, and I'll talk to you all on the other side of it. So actually, something that's kind of funny. I was thinking about this today leading up to our chat because we've rescheduled this a couple of times just due to both you and I having life happen to us in the course of the last couple of weeks. But initially, we had to reschedule because you had laryngitis leading up to your Aftershock appearance, and it's kind of interesting because like when I was thinking about that, I was like, some people might be like, fuck it, I'm going to do the press. Like, it's something I committed to. And I've had people come on when they're not feeling the greatest. And I really was like, I really admire that. Like, you were like, no, health comes first and the show needs to be the best it can be. So I'd rather rest up and be ready for this festival appearance because it's equally fucking massively a big deal.
Yeah, the live show, I feel like I gotta I didn't have laryngitis. I just had like some kind of flu and I lost my voice. But I think it was supposed to be, the day or two before the show or something. So I just played it safe. Yep.
How was the show for you? I mean, it's always kind of funny to me, like, doing press and sometimes applying myself to be, media at some of these festivals. It's like one of the things I like doing is kind of finding those smaller to mid-level placed bands and kind of putting more of a shine on them, because I feel like that's the beauty of going to something like that, is kind of discovering something maybe that you had no idea about leading up to it.
I just switched to my headphones. Can you hear me better like this? Or okay.
Yeah.
I had a blast. That was the biggest festival we've ever played. As far as the infrastructure, like it was like its own little universe. So it was cool to be a part of that. The bands I wanted to see were not on our day, so I didn't get to see any favorites. But it was fun. Yeah, we had a really good time.
I feel like that's kind of one of those shows where it's such a big opportunity for newer bands and more to the point, and I don't mean to say this to like discredit any other bands that were on the bill that day, but I feel like there's something unique about what you're doing with this new record, and I feel like the message and everything contained within needs to be, put in front of more eyes and ears and so forth. And I think there's an importance to having bands like yourself on there at such a kind of more mainstream rock festival. And I feel like, I don't know, do you feel any of that pressure? Like when you're going to that, like that it's like we kind of, we're the sore thumb kind of sticking out against more mainstream things.
No, I never think about that. To me, kind of a show is a show. I mean, if we're playing at a gas station, we'll try to put everything we can into it. Kind of, I don't feel a pressure or a difference. To me, I don't know. A show is a show, kind of a thing. The only thing that was different about Aftershock was that we were playing some of the tracks from from Bellevue for the first time. So most of them for the first time. So that was the only like, oh shit, we're about to try this out. Let's see what happens. And some things worked. Some things we need to work on a bit, because we recorded during the pandemic when normally we would like test shit out, and but we didn't really have that opportunity. So we recorded before we played the stuff live and worked things out. So we're kind of now starting to figure them out. We have like a few run of like 4 shows coming up next week. So I'm excited to kind of keep figuring out what works and what doesn't work.
It's funny. I've actually talked with that to a lot of bands where I remember going to see shows and going to see some of like the local bands and so forth that were kind of climbing the ranks. And it's interesting because like, you'll go see a band and there was nothing worse than, oh man, that set was so fucking good. And then you go buy the CD and none of the songs you just heard were on it because it's all the new stuff. But it's interesting because it allows that band to work out the kinks. Like maybe something they think is great in the studio or like in their practice space, you go play it live and you're like, that was the shits, dude. Like no one gave a fuck. Like we need to like rework this or scrap this or whatever. And I kind of miss that sense of experimentation with bands in a live setting where they're not necessarily afraid to debut something that maybe not 100%, but just kind of see, does it connect, is it ready to be what it is, a full song. And I understand in this day and age now where everyone's filming everything, that you don't want that to exist if it's not fully done or whatever. But I do feel like that's kind of the fun of being a music fan, is that you can be like, remember when this song was this and then it became something else entirely on the record. Excuse me. But, it was also kind of interesting. I was doing a lot of thinking. My wife's out of town, so like I come home and I have nothing to do, and I just kind of like quote unquote doom scroll on different social medias and catch up on news from the day. And I was thinking back to when we were supposed to do this, the day that we were initially scheduled, the rescheduled time, and I wasn't able to do it. Here in Dearborn, we had protesters show up at a hearing about banning like the book, like a handful of books that they're like, it needs to come out of schools and libraries and all this kind of stuff. And it was really interesting because it made me kind of think about how wild it is that, we're in 2022 and people are trying to ban and censor art and words and things that have existed for decades and are an inspiration to so many people. And they're retroactively trying to get rid of these things because because it makes them uncomfortable. And I feel like at the end of the day, isn't that what good art is supposed to do?
I'm just listening. I'm taking in what you're saying.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. Are you asking me a question or?
Yeah, sorry. I guess like sometimes I ask these things and I realize that they're not fully formed questions. They're just kind of ideas I'm spitballing, but in real time. But it's one of those things that like I couldn't help but think, because I had been listening to Bellevue a lot, and I think even that day the video for the title track had come out, and it just really kind of made me think about how sad it is, that there are things like even your record, and I'm not saying it's controversial or anything, or anyone's coming to shut you guys down and anything like that, but it makes me think about words and the impact they have and how people need them, and that it's wild that we still exist in a day where people are trying to take that away from people, take away people's voices. And I don't know, I feel like this record that you just put out, I feel like it's needed right now. I think it's needed out for a multitude of reasons, but I think one of the biggest things is like your publicist Monica was just like, I believe so much in this band and the message that they have for this record. And I guess I kind of want to get into a little bit of that, like if you haven't talked about it to death, of just mental health and a lot of the shit that kind of went into this record.
Yeah, we've been talking about it a lot. I'm kind of sick of myself, but at the end of the day, I'm really grateful that someone wants to listen to it, and maybe it can help somebody, because that's what music does for me, and it absolutely helps. Like whether it's an extreme kind of thing I'm going through or just a shitty mood and I need to get out of it, I definitely go to music often. So. So I'm psyched to have something that's connecting with people, and from what I've heard, people seem to be enjoying it. So yeah.
I think what's been interesting for me with the release of the videos leading up to the release of the album is it's interesting because I feel like a lot of times people will just kind of look at music videos as being just a very whatever kind of thing. Like, oh, it's a thing we have to do to post it on YouTube or whatever, and try to get more people to stumble across us. But I feel like you utilize the medium to really emphasize the lyrics that are contained within, or even continue to tell more of a story that you want to showcase. And I feel like I'm just not seeing people do that. Like, are you getting pushback at all, or do you guys? And yeah, I should say, stop doing that. My grandmother would hate me if I said she knew I kept saying you guys. Do you all feel that that's such an important medium?
You can call us whatever you like over here. You can call me a unicorn if you like. I don't mind. Yeah.
Good.
No. That was the end of my thought. Just letting you know, you call me whatever you like.
It's just so funny. Ever since being a little kid, I constantly would see that. We'd be at a restaurant and it'd be like, how are you guys doing? Or what can I get you guys? And then my grandmother would just be like, I don't know about the guys, but us ladies would like. And I'm like, so it's been one of those things when people are like, you know, pronouns and addressing people correctly. It's always been kind of ingrained in me, but it is kind of a societal norm of just saying you guys or guys in general. But no, I mean, how involved with like treatments and stuff like that are you? Like,
pretty involved. Okay. Yeah, I love videos, and I feel like I haven't been able yet to. I work on indie films sometimes, acting and stuff, and I haven't had a chance to be a part of a lot of projects, like stories that I'd still like to be a part of telling. And it's really cool to be able to put some ideas into these like shorter ones, like Hollywood Junkyard. I had so much frustration about trying to work in that industry and stuff I saw, and it was awesome to have a place to put it and get to make something. I'm all about, like, if it swims in my head, it's not great. I got to get it out in some way, whether it's a song idea, whether it's just calling someone and talking about it, or making, you know, a video treatment or a drawing, anything. It always feels better when something exists after instead of just in your head. So even if you don't like it, it's like, well, I made that. There you go. I did something with it, you know. So with the videos, we shot all of them in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I live now, and all of our friends like have all the gear there, so we can do it pretty cheap. And everyone helps out, and my partner's a writer director, and he directed those. His name's John Swab, and we met on film work like a few years back, and he's super helpful with all that stuff. But the Bellevue thing, like, those ideas came from, when I heard playback of that song, I thought I sounded like a mad pig, and then I just got this visual of I want to hang out with a pig, and so we did that. And I had a bigger idea, and John told me that's going to cost $50,000, and I was like, okay, we can't do that. And so how do we, maybe 30 years ago we would be getting that kind of money to make a video, but for now we don't. So it was like, okay, we're going to go to our friend's farm and do it like that. Yeah.
Well, I think especially like, I mean, it's so tough. Like, Hollywood Junkyard, when I sat down and watched the video, like, I don't know what I was expecting the song visually to be, but when watching the actual video, it was just kind of, I mean, definitely at the end, very jarring. Like, you're just like, fuck. And it's interesting because it's all subjective, I guess, to the viewer in the presentation. Like, it's constantly said, like, you all create the music, and the experiences you go through over the course of time before you record these songs, they're yours. But once it's released, it becomes open to interpretation, and it's kind of no longer yours. I don't know if I 100% agree with that sentiment, but it is one of those that, like, watching Hollywood Junkyard video, I remember just kind of being like, oh, it's the standard. Everyone wants you to be this way because it's what sells, and you can't go against the norm. And then everyone's kind of getting to that place at the end of the video. But then obviously the, trauma that's kind of happening, the trigger warning that you put in the video that, ends up happening. It's kind of one of those, like, I remember just being like, fuck, I've not seen something like this in a music video. Like, I think outside of like Smack My Bitch Up by The Prodigy, where it's just like, you're so kind of shocked to see something that you're just like, fuck. But then it also kind of makes you really dig back into the lyrics and kind of be like, all right, like, what else maybe did I miss the last couple of times I've watched this or listened to this song? And even, going to Bellevue, it was like, my mind took it because of, more of what the place represents, what the lyrics represent. I almost was kind of like wondering and thinking in my own terms. I was like, we think that pigs are kind of dumb, but they're really fucking smart, and they go through a lot of things, and like, just they're kind of, I don't know, being happy with where you are and not kind of, I don't know. It was funny because I kind of really personified the pig aspect of it. Cool. Whereas I don't think a lot of people maybe would have thought of any of those things. And I was like, this is the beauty of music and the mediums that you use to create art beyond it, because it's so interesting to see where everyone's minds takes things.
Yeah, it's after the it's not like a conscious thought at first, but after we did the pig thing and I saw a photo from the shoot, then I started having thoughts about this. Actually feels exactly appropriate for where we are, because usually, sometimes with what we've kind of come up against, like we've had really positive things happen for the band. We've also had a ton of disappointment and a ton of just bullshit, like people saying they're going to do something, not doing it, this is going to happen, it doesn't. And then just kind of being at this place of like, okay, here we are, like we're in the shit here, but I'm kind of okay with it. Like I'm really okay with exactly where we are right now, because I've gone through the kind of delusional, like, wow, this could be this because this is what these people are saying. And then, the reality sets in that it isn't that. And I don't know if I'm talking too abstractly, but yeah, just kind of, I feel that way when I look at the cover. And we weren't gonna, I would rather me not be on the cover and pick something else. But we as a band have like this system of, we just kind of look at like our favorite images from that period of time, and everyone voted, and like that was what we liked more than like for Hollywood Junkyard, we did an EP, and our favorite from that shoot was this picture of Mackie where he looks like a bloody baby. So we put him on the cover. We were supposed to print those we were going to print, and then because of COVID, things not taking a really long time, we couldn't get them in time, so it just came out digitally. But yeah, I'm going off here, so let me know when you want to come back to a subject or something.
Well, no, I mean, that's the beauty of a podcast, and why I stopped controlling it as much as I used to. Like, and the big thing with talking with Monica about when she was like, I believe in this record, I believe in this band. And I remember emailing her and being like, I love the fact that you didn't just, maybe you did to a lot of other people, send a generic email blast, like trying to generate some press for a band you're working with. But I love the fact that you sent and took the time to email me personally and be like, this aligns with a lot of what I believe in. And I think, knowing like the two of us, the conversations we've had about things, she's like, I really believe that you should have them on. I think it can lead to a great conversation. And I don't feel like you get that anymore. I feel like there's so much, not necessarily with the people I deal with constantly, but I feel like in this industry, it's just a lot of bullshit. It's a lot of lip service, and it's a lot of, what can I get off of you?
Yeah, you learn like 99% of it's paid for, like those big press out. It's just bought, and it's pretty corrupt. But what's cool is what we've been seeing. Like, we didn't have any big, no like big money was spent on big press. The only way this record's getting out is from, like you're saying, like someone telling someone else, I think you're really going to connect with this. Like we had a great experience yesterday doing some radio promo stuff, and no press person reached out. It was just this woman that has a show, has been, I didn't know, but has been like following us our last for the full 3 albums. And she was like, I just love your music. Can you come on and talk about the new record? And it was really fun. She like played stuff I hadn't heard in a really long time, like early stuff from 2018. And it just felt so pure. Like, she enjoyed it. We had a good time listening to it. We talked about it. It wasn't like paid for, you know what I mean? I feel like you can feel the difference kind of.
Yeah.
When
100%. Someone
actually connects to something, which is cool.
Well, I feel like, and this is kind of where I was starting to kind of go, I think mental health for me has been just a giant thing. Like, in the pandemic, that's when I, like, I've talked about it quite a bit, but it's like, there was an event that basically happened the day of the Capitol riots, which that wasn't the thing that triggered me, but it was just a lot of death, a lot of emotional baggage from other people being dumped on me. And I realized that it's like, man, like, I just can't do this anymore. I can't exist and be the person that, just takes on all this shit when I have my own. And where do I go? Like, how do I deal with this? And so, like, I went to therapy, and, it's been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And it's also one of those things where it's made me realize to be more present, to be more honest and sincere, because also, like, who the fuck cares about like superficial shit? Like, at the end of the day, you just have to be you, and you have to be comfortable with yourself first. But I think I'm just getting older too. And like, I was just having a conversation yesterday where I was like, I'm over putting all this effort into relationships that the other side doesn't want to be in. What's the point? Like,
How
that's
do you
not a
mean, like,
relationship.
do you mean like friendships, or how do you mean?
Friendships, working relationships. Like, there have been times I've kind of applied it to that idea to a lot of different things. And it's more of, we'll say if it's a friendship, well, then if I'm texting you all the time, if I'm trying to call, if I'm trying to set up plans and you just keep, oh, nope, 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 or whatever, then it's like, but you never reach out to me. It's like, that's a one-sided relationship. And it kind of clearly speaks to the fact that you don't really want to be in it, or at least not in as much as I do. So I'm just going to like let go of it and just see what happens. And
I
a lot of
found a way
times,
to cut through that stuff if you're interested.
100%. What is it?
But I got rid of my smartphone like 2 years ago, and it is so clear now. The people in my life are people where it is reciprocal. It's a I'm nourishing you, you're nourishing me relationship, like we're trees, and there isn't that noise and distraction. It's kind of like if you really want to connect with someone, like I don't text because I don't have that stuff. So if someone wants to connect with me, they have to call me. And if they don't want to call me, then they don't really want to connect with me. Like if they don't want to see me in flesh or talk to me on the phone, that kind of has helped cut through a lot of wasted time and stuff. For me, it's not for everybody, but it's been awesome for me the last couple years with that. So
how was the excuse me, just burped. How was the transition from going away from that? Because I feel like that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is I've cut a lot of the digital noise out of my life. Like, most of the apps are kind of off my phone. I'm not really engaging with them, posting at all. And it's kind of interesting that when you start doing that, I'll at least notice that most of the interactions I used to have are gone, but I have more valuable, I have quality over quantity relationships now, I feel like, in interactions.
Yeah, it wasn't too hard of a transition because I haven't had, I had Facebook, like, I don't know, maybe for, God, I don't know, a few months or something back when it came out. And then I got rid of it really quickly because I had Instagram also for a few months when it first came out. And it felt like I just saw my brain always looking at it and it was like, what is actually going on here? I'm like, feel like I'm talking to myself. I'm just putting a picture up, and then it didn't work for me. And I felt like it was about validation or something. So I got rid of that stuff years ago. So that transition was easy because there wasn't like a habit of waking up and checking that stuff or any of that. I used to have a habit of waking up and checking my emails when I was booking tours for the band, like 5 years ago, and I was booking everything myself, and I would get addicted to like putting these like long string of dates together. But even that I changed to like, now I only do emails like 2 or 3 days a week, like weekdays only. And then the other days I turn everything off. And I have a flip phone. So if there is something with the band, they call me if there's something important, but I have to be able to go on a walk or exist in a whole day's time without like getting bombarded with like emails or texts or that kind of stuff. So I can actually feel present and available for somebody, because otherwise my brain's like thinking about my little universe and my world that the phone seems to design like this is your little universe. And it feels really small and trapping. And it's kind of like, I'm not huge into shows. There's only like a few that I've seen and really like, but Black Mirror is one of my favorites. And the first season, the second episode, to me, I saw that. I watched it like 4 times in a row because I just was like, oh my God, somebody put exactly how I feel about a smartphone into like this universe and just like our culture and stuff. But anyway, if you're into that kind of stuff, season 1, episode 2 is my favorite as far as like entertainment and just the trap of there's the trappings of that stuff. So yeah,
It's kind of interesting, because I feel like something I've noticed And, I try to be a lot more present. Like, I usually will put my phone screen down, just because it's a bigger phone and it's cumbersome to put in my pocket. But it was one of those things, like, when I go out, typically I'll just have it face down so, like, I don't see it buzz or vibrate or anything to distract me from a conversation I may be having. But as someone who's not really in, I'll say, the digital space at all, like, and I noticed that when I was looking for some of your socials to kind of create show notes and so forth for that part, that you don't exist online in that capacity. And I was just like,
No.
for as much as you do, it's interesting that I often wonder, is it sort of a quote unquote hindrance from, like, the music business side, where people are like, you really should be on these, or you really should do these.
At the end
Like,
of the day, my sanity is so much more important than any kind of success. Like, and I've had to learn that. And so I'm okay with going not as far, but maintaining connection to, like, nature and I'm not, like, I'm actually really interested in communities that don't have anything. Like, I'm starting to learn about them, but I still have, like, I'm still on the grid. We're in a band, we tour. I have an iPad that I use when we go on tour, and I still don't, like, have social media or any of the stuff on there, but, like, I use Google Maps. Like, I still am I need it when we tour. If I didn't have to do that and someone else was doing it, I wouldn't have anything except a flip phone. But I have that stuff. But I find, like I'm in problem, and I have an addictive personality. So, some people can safely handle it, and I'm just not one of those people. And I think it's up to each person to know, like, is this harming my life? Like, is this getting in the way of me being happy or something? For me, it was when I had a smartphone. So that's why I got rid of it. But I have, like, no judgment about other people. If it's, if they're cool with it, everyone's own thing,
Today's Beer Minute is brought to you by Starving Artist Brewery, who share a simple belief: you should judge beer and not people. Today's beer is a collab between Untitled Art and XUL Beer Company. It's their German chocolate cake stout. Coming in at 8%, this pastry stout really takes your taste buds on a ride. With the decadent chocolate cake flavor with subtle notes of coconut and pecans providing a nice sweet back-end flavor that will keep you sipping until the very last bite. Thanks to Starving Artist Brewing, who reminds you to support your starving artists. And please, always drink responsibly. And now, back to the show. How have you found it to traverse the world that... Because, like, when I sometimes will be, like a while ago, I left my phone at home, and I was like, I don't need it. I'm hanging out with the people that I would hang out with or communicate with.
Yeah.
And someone was like, oh, something like a phone was left. Like, oh, you left your phone? I go, no, I left it at home. And everyone just kind of looked at me like, well, what happens if, or, all these hypotheticals. And I was like, I'm with my wife. We're going to the same place she drove. So, like, and you're all here. Who do I need to talk to? Like, what do I need it for? Whatever is happening, like, it will be there when I get there. And if someone really needs to get a hold of me, like, they probably have my wife's number or have a way to get a hold of her, like, at the absolute worst. And I go, but it's interesting to kind of exist in a world where everyone just, like, I work at a bar, working door, and it's baffling to me to watch 10 to 15 friends coming in, because I'm like, who the fuck has 12 or 15 friends to go do anything at any given point in time, which is baffling to me. But secondly, it's wild to watch them all congregate around a big table and sit on their fucking phones. And I'm like, why are you all hanging out in person when you're just on your phone? Like, that's so fucking weird. And I feel like as I kind of am removing myself from a lot of these things and talking about other things I'm doing other than something I can physically show you on my phone, it's kind of interesting to see the different reactions to people of, like, oh, well, can you show me a video? No, I can't, because it was a book. It's a book I'm talking about. I can't show you a book on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to, it's like when you were talking about just things that are fucked up in the world, what is something that I've learned from me, like, I'm super sensitive. When I see, like, anyone in pain, whether it's a homeless person or on a mass level, like, I start hysterically crying sometimes. Like, I can't handle it. So I don't, like, put my head in the sand, but at the same time, I've learned, for me to be the most useful, like, the best version of myself and able to be like take care of myself enough so that I can be available for somebody else to listen to them and help them, I can't pay attention to things I have no control over. That's just for me. Like, I feel like it's cool that we all have our own callings and passions about, like, I really care about this, or I really care about this. And for me, like, when I moved upstate New York from a city, like 6 years ago now, 6.5, it was about like disconnecting from that stuff to kind of find a community where, like, I started learning about all kinds of community service in this small town, and just like, okay, what can I control? Like, I can't, when I lived in LA, it's fucking so tragic driving around Skid Row or those places. And you're like, what does one possibly do? How do you contribute? And I spent one day we handed out like a couple hundred sandwiches, me and John, and I ended up getting a ticket from the cops. That was one ticket I did not pay because I thought it was they gave me a ticket for handing out sandwiches. But yeah, it's like there was just no way. So when I moved to a smaller town, it was cool to feel like I could make a difference. Like, I wonder if everyone just focused on their own community and instead of the news and like larger things that they've no control over, but yeah, help. But then at the same time, people that don't have help in their communities, other communities have to reach out and help. So it is a bit confusing, but I guess what's worked for me is just like what's around me and trying to be of service to the people around me and like my sober community and help other like young girls that are trying to get sober and stuff like that. So that's instead of focusing on like, fuck, everything's fucked up. Because I do think that every generation thinks it's the end of the world. From what I've read from history, and everyone thinks, man, it's really bad right now. I think that's always the way it is. I'm not sure why. So I try not to and with my past of like some mental illness stuff or whatever I went through where I crossed the line of sanity, I can't go too far down the rabbit hole of conspiracy stuff, or I get it's just a little triggering. So I try to like stay with the information I have, if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
I just went around the world right there. I just went
no, actually, and that's actually a really great way to kind of talk about a couple of different things as you were saying that it made me think of. First of all, you talked about a couple of different places you live that are such extremes. You know, I'm originally from the East Coast, born and raised in Delaware initially, and then I moved out here to the Midwest. And then in the last handful of years, my wife and I have traveled more over the U.S., and it's interesting to see how different everything is regionally and experiencing life from different perspectives other than your own. And I always find it interesting when people talk, you know, and again, this is a byproduct of working at a bar in the service industry. You're privy to so many conversations that people have. Yeah. Oh, if only for a split second, you're quintessentially the fly on the wall at all times. But it's so interesting to hear people talk, and you can kind of get a sense very quickly. Have you ever left this area? Have you ever been anywhere and met anyone else that's not like you or your immediate group of friends who might all have the same way of thinking about things? And I feel like I connect more with people who experience life, have gone and learned about themselves, but about the world around them, because I feel like that's where you start, as you said, finding communities. It starts, and it did for me, in music. You find your people in your musical scene, and you start a community, and basically you support one another and do all these things. And, you know, sometimes depending on the area you live in, those communities also will outreach to other communities and put on like benefit shows and do other things, and then raise your awareness of other issues beyond just music or the things that are being talked about in the music you're listening to. And I don't discredit finding communities or wanting to seek out finding other communities, other people, and overall just trying to be a better version of you or a better version of people for the world. But beyond that, you know, you're talking about, you know, like conspiracy theories and stuff like that. And I mean, I have the same problem. I can listen to, and I find them infinitely fascinating when I listen to them. But sometimes it's like, if you hear someone talk and they believe so strongly in something, you can listen to someone talk about anything and you're like, yeah, yeah, man, I believe that. But then you're
Yeah.
also like, wait, what the fuck are we talking about? You're talking about weird shit. And it's like, and then it's even in that where I start learning, I go, we as people are so fucking susceptible that all it takes
Yeah.
is just having passion and making others believe that you know what you're talking about or believe that these things can happen. And you're like, man, it is fucking wild. Like the human race of people, like how we all are and how we are so different but so similar. And it's fucking crazy. And as I get older, I notice so much of these things now. And sometimes I feel like at times, as someone who, and so I'll counter this statement with this one. So very recently, I kind of went through a sober month just to do it, and it was interesting that like I still went out to the bars. I've done it every couple of years, like where I'll go and do this, and it's just to kind of be like, all right, I need a detox. I'll just kind of get away from some of these things and just prove that I have control over it versus me. But also on the flip side of that, there have been times in the last couple of years where I've kind of started going down more of the road of like taking, psychoactive, like mushrooms and stuff like that, and just kind of being a passenger in my own life versus trying to oversteer it and overcomplicate things by just wanting to drive somewhere or having an overactive mind for things. And it's really interesting when you kind of just sit back and just kind of look at life, that I tend to find that a lot of us, I shouldn't generalize. I tend to find that for me, I feel like a lot of people are very afraid to be themselves uniquely, and also get in their own way to have experiences that could unlock something in them to maybe reach their full potential. And I know it's a journey, and it's something that we're all kind of trying to work on day by day, but it's been really interesting as I get older to just kind of take in the world and just kind of see what it's going to present to me and what's going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like it's in my opinion, it's no one's fault if they're not open to that. I mean, I feel lucky that I had my breakdown or whatever it was. It lasted 9 months, because before that I was just kind of raised on television, and my thoughts were kind of, I don't want to generalize it, but like that authentic place of like that inner kid of what really is interesting to me, or like on a instinctual level, like what am I drawn to, like forget about what it's called or what it looks like, or like what am I drawn to. That was something I couldn't access or really tap into until I crossed the edge of sanity, and then after was like, well, shit, that was the craziest, most horrifying experience. I guess I'm going to try. I felt really motivated after to try things that always freaked me out, like singing in front of people or acting or any of that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, if that didn't happen to me, I'd just be another boob walking down the street staring at my phone. So, I don't know,
Yeah. So something that I find fascinating is the English language and the way that we describe things. As you were saying, basically on the other side of it, you're talking about a breakdown. To me, it's funny because, and I fucking hated this when I worked at Sam's Club, but it was one of the beginnings of changing the phrase and the mentality of things. So instead of like, oh, I fucked up, like this was an area where I made mistakes. We don't make mistakes. They're called areas of improvement is how they would phrase them.
Yeah.
So you were never in trouble. You didn't make a mistake. This is just a teaching moment. And
Yes.
It's so wild that like that phrase I've taken with me ever since I've been there, and I haven't been there for a very long time, but I've also applied it, to a lot of other terms we tend to use in our society, where it's like some people would say you had a breakdown of some sort. I almost would say it wasn't a breakdown, it was a breakthrough, because I got through it. I was able to learn something about myself, and I was able to pull myself out of the worst spot that I could have been in. And now I'm equipped to be a better me and knows how to handle that and can maybe be the voice for someone else who's going through it. But it's just interesting when you look at how we describe these things. Oh, as a breakdown.
Totally.
That sounds
Totally.
negative, and it's just weird to think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
how that is.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. I mean, sometimes it depends on my mood. I mean, sometimes if I get asked about it, it feels like a spiritual journey or a birthing cycle because it lasted 9 months, and so I do have a tendency to more so go towards the positive of it. But I just out of habit used the word breakdown. But I love that. I'm gonna apply that. I also feel like it can be used with even more just basic human interaction type stuff, like people in my life that feel like just a pain in the ass. Like, why do I have to deal with this person or work with this person or something? And then I have a friend who's more enlightened than I am, and she's like, they are your teachers. Like, those people are your teachers, and they're here to teach you things like how to know your limits or what you're willing to put up with, or seeing yourself in them. Like, oh shit, I do that too. I don't really like that. So I've kind of been able to now see the fruits of that with certain things. So when something's uncomfortable or just not pleasant, I'm like, all right, I'm learning here. Let's get to the other side of it, but okay, so yeah.
Well, I feel like that's a thing too. Like, and that's why I love doing this. During the pandemic, when a lot of people realized they literally could not have the human interaction of going to see people anymore, I was so appreciative that I started this thing a couple years before it, where I was like, I'm still getting that stimulation of talking to someone. I'm still getting the stimulation of learning something new about someone, maybe having someone challenge my ideas or me to them.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's like this almost is a form of therapy, because it's like I usually will take something away from somebody, and I'll take it with me. And I always feel kind of bad because it's like it almost becomes like this sort of crutch, like this talking point where it's like, man, so I was talking to so-and-so today, and people are just like either A, have no idea who I'm talking about or whatever. And it isn't, the point of it isn't to like be like braggy or whatever or talk about the show, but it's like, so really the thing was, and the reason I was mentioning whomever is because like we were talking about X, Y, or Z related to this thing. But man, I've been thinking about this thing that we were talking about, and I just really want to share it, and I want to explore the idea even more. And it's kind of dissatisfying when people aren't really willing to go down that emotional or mental journey with you, where you're like, man, I think there's something here. Like, don't you want to explore this a little bit more and just kind of see like what can we then learn from each other now in this situation, piggybacking off of this really awesome moment that I had, an hour or two later.
Yeah. It's really amazing to me how simple it can be too. Just because whenever I've gotten in that headspace, which is not often anymore, but used to be often, of just that dark place of everything's wrong, like everything's wrong, and myself, where I stand, just like, I don't know, feeling really negative. And then one simple conversation with another human being and hearing what's going on with them, it's like suddenly the sun comes out a little, and it's, oh, I can do this. Like, I can do this day. This day is not so bad. Like, I'm okay. I'm sticking it out. I'm staying around. And it's just, I guess it's that connection is like the cure for that space, I guess.
No, I mean, I think in principle, that's why social media as a whole feels like it should work, because it should fulfill that part that we're all looking for. However, it does the abstract, because I think everyone is more focused. It's so easy to focus on the negatives instead of focusing and turning it around into some sort of a positive. And I know that sounds all like, oh, you're kind of hippie and like the world isn't all right. And I agree, it's not. But it's so much easier to just wallow in the negatives versus finding something positive in it. Like, I was telling someone recently with this show, and they're like, oh, it seems like you're killing it. And I was like, I mean, yes, but here's the reality of the optics of what it looks like versus the reality.
Dude,
and I go,
I'm with you. Yeah.
But I made the comment, I go, I could I could be really downtrodden that I'm not the best show, the biggest show, or whatever. Or I could step back and go, dude, I've been doing this for fucking almost 6 years, 400 episodes. I've been consistent with it. I've grown it. It's all organic. It's all DIY. And I can sustain at this level that I've got it to. I should be fucking stoked. And you know what? I am. If it never gets beyond this, I am happy with where things are. And all it is it's the same things are happening, but instead of going and being bummed that I'm not going to get to this level, or I may not ever, and then being bummed and shitty about it, why not flip it and be like, well, look at all I have done. I did something. I created something out of nothing, and I've taken it really fucking far, all things considered.
Totally. I
Do that.
I so relate to that, and it's taken me some time to get there. Like really this year, like even with this album, we had so much disappointment at the top of the year of what we thought and what was told to us, and you know, at the end of the day, we have to make a living, and we thought we'd be in this position where we'd all be able to be like sustaining off of this, and then things don't work out, and then, you know, if you see someone that just came out, just started a band last week, and they're doing things that you've been working your ass off for like for us, like 5 years, like trying to get there. And that's why I've learned, like, I'm human, I'm susceptible to all of it, but I've learned I really can't look at what other people are doing unless it's in a positive way, like people that I like or believe in what they're doing. I get so psyched for their success. Like there's certain bands like Turnstile or different bands, and I hear, because my drummer Mackie and Kendall are on Instagram and they know what's going on with different bands. They're like, oh my God, they just got this tour. And I'm like, fuck, that's amazing. Like, that's so cool. And I just see what they're doing. I appreciate what they're doing. And then when I hear about other things that don't feel like they're coming from a pure place, or like we're doing this because we love it, it just feels like a little more crooked, that can get to me. And so I've learned, like, I don't want to know unless it's like, yeah, I don't want to know. But it's taken a while to just focus on, like someone reached out recently about the record and told me she just got diagnosed with cancer. And when she gets really angry and pissed off about her situation, she puts on Bellevue and it makes her feel really good. And I was like, all right, like, that's the point. Like, that's it. Like, I don't want anything more, like I did my job. Like, if it's being of service to someone else, that's it. And like all the other stuff is like fucking noise. It's a trap like that. Like you're saying, oh, well, we're not going to be this one, or it's like, we're not on Warner Brothers records or whatever. It's like, we're on a cool label with good people that tell it to us pretty straight. So I'm happy, I mean, like, yeah, that part of that to me goes in line with like the addict brain for me, like what I've learned of wanting what you don't have, or wanting to be anywhere else besides where you actually are. And that's a hard thing, to just be content with what you have. It takes a lot of work for me, but there's simple like things like when I go for a walk in the woods by myself, there's nothing more I could want. I feel perfect. I feel at peace. Everything feels good. So I have to kind of have those daily things that connect me to what really matters to me. And yeah, that kind of helps me stay like not looking on, like if you're on social media looking at other podcasters or who they're interviewing or what they're doing, that to me would be a recipe for, like, I can't look at the YouTube videos we put out, like comments, like I'll just, if something's really funny, Kendall will share it with me. But otherwise I can't look at what people's opinions are, because I did once. And like you said, it's weird. Our brain, like, there's 99 positive things, and the one negative thing, that's what my head sees and holds on to. It's fucked up. I don't know why, it is that way. So I've learned it's my job to do it and have no opinion on it, and not engage with other people's opinions. When there's somebody I really like their work and I hear they dig us, that makes me feel validated and cool. Like when Iggy Pop played us on his radio show, I definitely, that day I was like glowing, because I really love his work. And so I was like, wow, he likes us. I guess we don't suck. So that made me feel good. But
Well, I mean, as trivial and cliche as it kind of sounds, it's like we all want validation for the thing that we invest ourselves into. And I mean, there are times like, I mean, I've had people be like, oh, well, this dude just talks too much or whatever. And I'm like, and one day, like, especially since my face wasn't attached to the graphics anymore and it's literally just, you know, what it is. I was like, you know what? I'm going to fire back at this dude because fuck it. Who cares? If you want to and I was literally just texting someone about this like right before we started chatting because he did the same thing. And I was like, I go, dude, if you hate it so fucking bad, go start your own show. Like, let me be the inspiration for you to go create something yourself. I go, you are literally where I was watching interviews with my favorite bands and I thought people were pissing away the opportunity. And instead of leaving a shit comment, I just fucking went and did something. So leave your little shit comment and I'm going to comment because I can see it and I'm a big boy and I can. I go, then go do better. And if you can't and you're not willing to, then shut the fuck up. Honestly, because you're not doing anything. You're not adding anything of value. You're being, and then I even took it a step further. Clicked on went to his YouTube channel, went to his YouTube page, and literally just copy and pasted his comment. And then it was funny. He flagged my comment, and I got in trouble from YouTube. But I was just like, and then I went back to mine, and I go, "Oh, you reported mine. I didn't report yours." I go, stop being anonymous and if you're not willing to take some criticism and you're going to dish it out, then don't. There are people on the other side of this. And I think when you have an anonymous voice, you think you can say and do whatever, and no one's going to say anything to you. I have definitely learned that working in a bar too, where I'll watch people talk and act like they were on fucking line and ain't going to suffer any consequences. And then it's like, stand up and say something. Or in my case, because I don't really raise my voice and I'm not a very aggressive person, but when you get me there, I get there. And I remember yelling at someone, and I go, you know you have to be a real fucking asshole for me to yell at you. And literally all of my staff are now watching me, and I know it. And the whole bar is too, and they know me. And yeah, you got to fucking go. And the guy was just like, you can't. I was like, I don't give a fuck what you have to say. Get the fuck out of my bar right now, or I will pick you up and I will throw you the fuck out of here. And I was like, you're done. And I remember just everyone just kind of was like, you should go. John doesn't do this. But it was, again, it's finding your voice. It's finding who you are and being willing to stand up for yourself and what you believe in. And I know being in a bar and kicking someone out doesn't sound very righteous or anything like that. But the thing is the person was being really confrontational to a group of women at a table, and I just wasn't putting up with it. So, it was one of those things where it's like, you got to go. And I may not be the most physically intimidating person, but I can at least front enough that you'll leave.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. I know you got to go here pretty soon, but I mean, I think something you kind of talked on, and I know it's probably been talked to death because everyone wants to talk about the big names, but I feel like with the people between the people who own the label that you're on and how you got put in front of them, I mean, it's just, that right there is the win to me. That would keep me going for so long. And I mean, I had the same thing. I tweeted, I was listening to Ice-T's podcast. He was talking about how haters only hate on people who they wish they were or doing what they were doing. Yeah. And I put out a tweet and I was like, thanks Ice for the daily game on your podcast. I needed it today. I needed it. I was feeling this and thank you. And he retweeted it and then was just like, remember, haters only hate up. They don't hate on people below them. And I was just like, there it is. That's the game. That's how real life is. People don't hate on shit if they ain't jealous of you. And it's like,
yeah, that's interesting because we do have one song on the new record that some people have asked me about called Greta Van Fake, which started as just a joke. It was a joke song that Kendall and I wrote. I never thought it was going to be on an actual record that people could listen to or purchase. But when you say that, I think because they say if you're pointing out something in someone else, it's because you have it yourself. And it is something. The point of that song, there wasn't really a point because it was just written really randomly. But looking back now, I was pissed off because to me it was there just was no room for a band like us, and we're out there booking our own tours, working our asses off for years, and then there's this band that just gets to everyone does everything for them and they're playing arenas and we would love that. We would love to connect with as many people as possible. and and we try to do it without any kind of like trickery or seduction or whatever they're doing to get young little girls to like get crushes on them or whatever. But like, we're trying to just play a good rock show and like give you all our energy. And that feels like not enough nowadays. Like, you have to sell everybody or seduce them in some way, which to me like really turns me off. Like, as soon as I feel like someone's selling me something, everything is like, please stop. That's how I feel. So, and anyway, but yeah, maybe I'm jealous. So yeah, I don't know. Work to be done there.
I was like, or maybe you just use that as motivation to
totally
be inspired in the next thing that you create, that then will, instead of again being something negative, you can harness it and make it something positive.
I guess I did, because we made the song and some people have said they like it. So I guess there you go. We made something with the thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would say this is where I usually have someone plug themselves or something online if they would like to, but we already addressed that you're not really, so I've already taken care of it.
The band has a page if people want to go follow. Everything's just The Bobby Lees. Like, our website has merch and shows, and our new record, the vinyl's on there. It's thebobbylees.com.
And just kind of a fun last question, because the year is pretty much ending. This is when the industry kind of starts to slow down for the year and all that. What are you excited about to end the year, and what are you looking forward to in 2023?
Oh man, I hope we have about 4 record release shows coming up that we're excited about, like in our hometown of Woodstock, and we're also playing at this place called the Canes Ballroom in Tulsa, which was a goal venue for me because people like the Stones and Bob Dylan and Patti Smith and Jack White, they've all played there. So that was like a lucky thing that we got that show. But I'm looking for, I'm excited to like get to meet other bands on the road and hopefully get to open for some people we like. And I guess be able to show up for this record and be of service to it and play it and connect to more people. But as of now, we still don't have an agent, and I've officially retired from booking because it was too much work. So I have no idea.
It's a lot of thankless work.
I have no idea if we will be on the road next year. We'll see if maybe a miracle will happen and we'll get ourselves a quality person that wants to work with us. We have had it. We have had agents before, but I've chosen to let them go after there was like dishonesty and just at the end of the day, we want like just kind, good people around us as opposed to anything else, which is hard to find in entertainment. So if you have a heart and a soul, reach out to us, please. We need help. Yeah.
Well, it was great chatting with you. I'm glad we finally got to do it, and looking forward to.
Thanks so much for spreading the word on the record. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm hoping. Hopefully you'll come here to the Midwest again. I know you played Detroit not that long ago, but hopefully you'll be able to come back and get to catch a set finally.
Yeah, we hope to. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Well, have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So that was my conversation with Sam, again, of the Bobby Lees. Want to thank her for taking the time while she was in her car and driving around and all that. It threw me for a minute. I'm not used to having someone not be on camera so I can't see them. And it is interesting, and it reminds me that I need to be a little more aware of this, kind of speaking of being aware of things and working on things, working on yourself, like I was talking about in the big intro. But it was one where it was hard to figure out if I was not making a concise statement or a question. And sometimes when kind of thinking of something on the fly, you realize that you're not posing it as a question. And when I was kind of going back and cleaning up some of the audio of this chat, I was reminded of, Anchorman, like, I'm Ron Burgundy, like that that it was like, there's a question and he read it as such because that's what the teleprompter told him to. But I realize sometimes when I'm speaking, I will ask a question, but I don't ask it with a question mark type way of ending it. Like, what do you think? Or something like that. Like sometimes I'll just say it and it's almost like a statement. And I'm just like, and now it's your turn to talk on that. And I realize that's something I need to maybe be a little bit better at. But not being able to see the guest, it sometimes is hard because you're not sure if the person's thinking
or what they're doing. And, you know, I want to thank Sam for at least just be like, oh, I'm taking in what you're saying and I'm kind of thinking about it. Because when you don't have the visuals sometimes to go with this, it makes communicating a little bit more interesting. It's definitely something I am working more on personally. And I just, I really enjoyed the chat. I really enjoyed once we kind of really got into it, about, 15, 20 minutes in, and we were really kind of hitting interesting things. And, and I always talk about in the chats, I love doing this show. Even if no one listens, I get something out of it. And it was so wild to me to think about, when she was talking about having a breakdown. And I said, I don't think that's the right phrase to use. I think you had a breakthrough, when it's about changing your perspective. I thought about it in that moment when she was saying that basically, I had to go through a breakdown and, now I'm on the other side and all this kind of other stuff. And I realized when we, as people go through things that we tend to, I feel like, use the wrong terminology at times. I feel like we end up always looking at it, as a bad thing. I joked about working at Sam's Club and how they don't call it a mistake. They call it an area of opportunity. And when I worked there, I fucking hated that phrase. I hated it because it's so stupid. But as I've gotten older and I've really thought about it, I think that's a better spin to put on it. You didn't make a mistake. That's just an area now for you to learn how to grow. It's an opportunity for you to grow and be better. And I love that idea. Like, make mistakes, learn, grow from it. That's how you become a better you. And to me, I think it applies the same way when you're talking about mental health and so forth. I think so many of us are quick to speak negatively about these things, or we only get to the positive part when we're so far removed away from it and you're talking about the present. But when you look back and you're talking about yourself or whomever at your lowest or their lowest, it's always kind of with this reflection of negativity. And to me, it's like, but that was the beginning of the process that got you to where you are now. So how is that not a positive in and of itself? And I know that may sound like, people listening to this may be like, dude, what the fuck? Like, you're on some like hippie bullshit. But like, to me, it really does change how you interact and how you think. When you start looking for positives in things instead of focusing on the negatives, it really changes how you look and view at things. And that was something, again, going to therapy kind of started making me realize, was that, we tend to focus on all the negatives. Like Sam had said, there can be 100+ comments on a video that are positive, but I'll focus on the one negative because that's just how we are as people. But if you flip it and then start looking at that one negative maybe as an area of opportunity to grow, then there you go. Maybe like now you can put it into conjunction with the rest of the positive things and kind of realize, like, I'm doing pretty good. I need to focus maybe on this one little thing. And then, man, I think I really got it. And how can you not be excited about that? Especially when it comes to art or something that you're putting out there of yourself. All of that said, really want to thank Sam for coming on and spending the time. I really enjoyed a lot of the avenues and areas we went in with this chat. And like I said, obviously I've taken some of it to heart myself since we've done this conversation about a week or so ago. And I've really been thinking about it a lot more. So I hope that's what you all, whoever you are listening to this currently, I hope you get to do the same thing. I hope there's something maybe we're talking about that you take with you and you think about it, and it kind of makes you change a part of your life, or at least just think about it a little bit more. I think that's all I can ask for. Starting to wrap up this episode, if you would like to keep up with the Bobby Lees, simple enough. Honestly, you could just go to thebobbylees.com. That is their landing page for everything. But if you would like to find them on socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at the Bobby Lees. As you heard, Sam doesn't have social media. I am very jealous of her for that. I think I am slowly getting to that space myself personally. And the flip phone thing was pretty interesting too. I don't think I could go quite that far. But I have thought about getting another phone and basically just having it be my new personal phone number, and then the one I have currently being, more of like a business one where it's like the people I really want to get a hold of me, I'm going to give that, and then anyone else calling me on my other phone is going to be kind of left on red or not as important for a little bit. I don't know. That's a whole nother topic. That's a whole nother thing I would love to talk about. And maybe as I begin my journey into that potentially, we'll see how that goes. If you would like to keep up with the podcast, you can follow Simple Enough, Brew Speak Pod on all your socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. If you'd like to support the show monetarily, you can do such over at our Patreon, patreon.com/brewspeakpod. All the episodes live up there well before they become available on, for free everywhere else. Videos, all that kind of stuff. There's some extra podcast content over there. Just go ahead and check it out if you're interested. If you'd like to email me, brutallyspeaking@gmail.com. And also want to take a moment to shout out our sponsors again real quick. Rockabilia, don't forget to use our code BRUTALLY at checkout. Take 10% off your total purchase order. Want to thank them. And Starving Artist Brewery. I have enjoyed immensely having them come on. I've been enjoying the beer minutes that we've been doing. Gotten a lot of feedback from that recently. All seems to be very positive, so very much enjoying that. I do have a new segment I'm kind of working on as well. That may or may not be being revealed here pretty soon. All of that said, keep up with us on our socials and all that, and you'll kind of be abreast to whatever is happening. And for the Brutally Speaking podcast, I am John, and I'll see you next time with Tyler Bryant of Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown. That was a really fun one. A little bit different, I think, of an artist than you would expect to be on the show. Can't wait to get that one to you. Talk to you then.